everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you how to do this patterned tile that I started and kind of created and came up with. And it's working with a lot of Czech beads, not necessarily all Czech manufactured, but Czech coated as well. So what we are going to be doing is working with the tile beads. The tile beads are similar to the tila, but they're manufactured in the Czech Republic versus Japan, and they have two holes, but they're slightly fatter than the tile bead. They're 6 millimeter, or the tila bead. In addition to those, I'm using 11Os, and the 11O color that I'm using is the Crystal Magic Blue color. I'm using 15Os, and they are in a white-green luster. I have teardrops that are in the Crystal Azzurro Matte. And then I'm working with two styles of Czech fire polished faceted rounds. I'm working both with 3 millimeter and 4 millimeter. My 3 millimeter color is the Jet AB matte color. It gives a nice purple and blues and a little bit of green hues to it. And then I'm working with Metal Violet in the 4 millimeter. It's a new color that we just got in. It's really pretty, kind of rosy silver color. It just has a tiniest bit hint of that violet-y purple. In addition to that, I'm going to be working with a cup button, and I'm working with a light violet cup button to kind of pull it all together. I have 2 needles. It's a 2-needle project. We're going to be working with those 2 needles at once. I'm working on my bead mat, and also next to my bead mat I have my thread burner to cut basically my thread and burn through the thread ends. I also have a needle nose pliers that assist when I need to take my needles off or to rethread in order to flatten down my thread. We're going to be working with those 2 needles constantly, and it's multiple passes going up and down our project. To get started on our project, I've cut about 5 feet of thread, and the thread that I'm using is the .006 wildfire beading thread, and I've placed it on my 2 needles, putting the thread on each side and creating a middle point. On that middle point, I'm going to add my cup button. Anytime I use 2 needles, it's very easy to add your closure or your clasp at the beginning. You can use any type of closure for this bracelet, but I've chosen to use our cup buttons. On my needle and thread, I put an 11O, or I'm sorry, a 15O, one of my 3 millimeter beads, and a 15O. I've then taken both needles, one on either side, and I've gone through my cup button with the bowl side facing up. On the other side of the cup button, I'm going to ground it by using one of my 15O beads and 3 of my 11Os on either side. This is going to start my project and add my clasp. Again, because we're going up and back the project, it's going to make it easy to reinforce this clasp as we go and build the project. I never want to take the project and just go through a clasp with one piece of thread. We're always going to do that multiple times. If you're using a regular clasp, you're not using a button, you would also add it in the same fashion, attaching the toggle, using a wire protector. If you are attaching it to metal, that's kind of up to you. But you're going to come out of your clasp with the same fashion, splitting the needles and the thread, one on either side. At this point, I'm going to pick up my first tile bead, and I'm going to cross through my tile bead. One needle is going to go from my right side to my left, and the other needle is going to go from left to right. This first one, it doesn't matter which side I put it on, whether or not it's the black side showing or the AB side showing, because it's the first bead. Again, we are going to make this reversible. One side is going to be black and one side is going to have that fun, funky look to it. On the sides of my tiles that are going in the center, I'm always going to have 3 11O seed beads. I'm taking my needle and thread through the top hole now of the tile. So the needle that was on the left and came through on the right hand side is going to go back to the left through the top hole of the tile. The needle that is on the left hand side that started on the right is going to go back to the right after I add 3 beads on that needle as well. And this just has a little buddy hanging out there. Sometimes during the coating process, every once in a while you get beads that are stuck together. You can just usually kind of break that off. That needle is going to go then again to the right, and at the same time I want to pick up the last bead that is closest to the tile, and my needle is going to come out that bead. The side that I've already added, I'm going to take my needle then and I'm going to go through that last 11-0 that I just added on the left. So you're going to have your needle and thread going through your tile, adding those 3 beads on the side, and coming out the 11-0 on either side. At this point, it's going to matter which way your tiles are facing, so you may want to lay them out so you know which direction you're going. If you don't have them laid out by accident, you could flip them, which won't work for our reversible project. So I'm going to be adding my next tile bead. On the needle on the right, I'm going from the bottom hole, and I'm starting with the black side down. So that way the black is going to sit right there. On the other side, again, going through that bottom hole, taking my needle out towards the left. When I get to the sides of my project here, I'm going to add some fringe. The fringe is going to be an 11-0 bead with a drop and an 11-0. So my needle that is coming through the tile that's on the right is going to get the 11-0, the drop, the 11-0, and then it's going to come through the top hole towards the center and just kind of hang out there. The one that's on the left we're going to mimic. So anything you do on the right for this project is always going to be done on the left and vice versa. So I'm adding my teardrop, my 11-0 and my teardrop. And then I'm going to sew through the top hole of my left tile, just like I did the right. Give a nice tight pull, and those tiles are just going to sit right in there, hanging out. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my next center tile. The center tiles, again, are always going to have 3 11-0 seed beads on either side. One that starts as I put on the base, so I'm going to put on my 11-0, and it doesn't matter which side you start out with. I'm going to put on my tile and another 11-0. Push that down next to your project, and we're going to go through all of those beads with our needle on the other side. So this needle here that's on the left is going to come through to the right, going through that 11-0. When I give a nice tight pull, you're just going to make sure as you flip your tile in place that the black side is still facing up, because when you switch it over, it's got that nice shine to it, so it looks completely different on one side than the other. Once my needles are coming out, they're going to be coming out between the tile and my 11-0. I'm going to add 2 more 11-0s, and I'm going to cross through the top hole. One needle going from right to left, and one going from left to right. As I add those 2 beads and take my needles through, I want to mimic what I did with the first, that I have my needle going through the tile and at the same time going through that first 11-0 closest to the center of the tile. With the needle that I've already passed through, I'm going to pick up that 11-0 that I added on the other side. So we're in the same starting position, ready to add our next grouping of our tiles. So same deal here, your needle is coming out between the second and third 11-0. The 11-0 that's closest to the center of the tile, it's coming out right after that. We're going to add our next tiles, and we're going to continue that same pattern. So we're adding our next tile. Again, I want to make sure that I'm adding through the correct hole. That way the black faces down. I'm going to add on the right, and I'm going to add on the left. After I add those, I'm going to create my fringe by adding my 11-0s and my drops. So I have my 11-0s on either side of a drop, and I'm going through that top hole towards the center. Same thing on the other side. And this is a lot of back and forth. You're working a lot with those 2 needles. But the nice thing is that you are doing the mirror opposites on each side. Anytime you start on the left, you're going to the right, and right going to the left. So again, we're ready to go to the middle. I'm going to show this one more time, and then we're going to continue the same pattern the whole length of our bracelet. On goes an 11-0, and a tile, and then 11-0. We're going to crisscross through by picking up the needle that's on the other side and going through that same 11-0, the tile, and the 11-0 that we just added. Pull nice and tight. So now again, my needle is coming out on the sides of my 11-0s. On gets added, 2 more 11-0s on the side, so that way it decorates it and has that little picot trim look. Go through the top hole, needle that's on the right goes to the left. The needle that's on the left, add the 2 beads, goes to the right. As I do that, I'm going to pick up that last 11-0 bead and sew through. And I'm going to come back to the needle that's already on the left and sew through the 11-0 bead. Now I'm in position and I'm ready to add my next side tiles. Same thing, go into the sides, adding your 11-0s and your drops. You can see at this point really how it's taking that reversible look. It looks completely different on one side. It's kind of like the elegant, funky, and fun. So this side's a little funky, this side's very elegant when you look at the black and the different coatings. It's going to be the same again with any of those AB or fun coating tile beads that you're using. So I'm going to continue doing the length of my bracelet, adding these tiles just as the center row and as the sides. So just showing my progress a little bit, I have my black side, and then you can really see the funky and elegant kind of going on again. So we've got the black and then our AB side. You can also make this reversible. In the sample that I made, the little sample piece, I did do the outside one color and the inside the other. This one I thought I would make really drastic with one side one color, one the other. I'm continuing to build along and add my tiles as I go. I'm at about 33 tiles right now. We sell our tiles in a tube that has approximately 35 beads in it. So you are going to need 2 tubes of whatever you're using. And you can change it up. You could do silver and black as well as the silver and the kind of goldeny color. So that's kind of up to you. But just showing the progress that I've made, and we're going to keep going. You can actually keep this bracelet just as is and not add the extra beads in between with the 3mm that we're going to be adding. So that's up to you when you get finished, if you want to keep going and add the additional layers, or if you want to keep it nice and simple. But continue to build the whole way till you get the length of your wrist. So during the videos that are longer, I usually show you the little cheats that I pick up as I'm going. So I can work with one needle at a time. What I'm doing is actually building just one side, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to add the other tile in. So I have my side that I'm building, and I'm just putting on my 2 tiles at a time, going from one side to the other. When I get to the ends, I still go just like normal, putting on my 11-0s and my drops on the sides. When I come back to the center here, all I'm doing is zigzagging, adding one of my 11-0s, another one of my tiles, and then I'm adding my 3 tiles, or my 3 11-0s on the side. Once I do that, I'm going to let my needle rest on that side, and I'm going to go back and add the ones here on the outside. So I have my tile that I'm going to add. That's going to the outer side. Again, you want to make sure they're facing in the correct direction. I'm going to add my 11-0 bead. Pour a couple more out here. I add my 11-0, my drop and my 11-0. And then when I come to the middle to tie it all together, I'm going to go through that first seed bead there on the side, and also through the seed bead straight through to the other side. I add an 11-0 seed bead, and if this confuses you, keep going with the style that I showed originally. I go through the 11-0 on the side of the tila, and what that does is that adds that third 11-0 in its place. And go through the 11-0 on the other side of the tila as well. This way I'm only working with one needle at a time. After I have that one in place, I'm going to get ready to add my next tile over here on the side. So I add my next tile and then continue on adding and connecting to those. So I'm getting ready to add my last tile, and when I add my last tile here, I'm going to also get ready to add the clasp closure that's going to go on the other side of my cup button. So I'm going to show you how to do that now, and I'm going to add my last tile in place here. And when I'm coming out of the tile, oops, I'm going to be at the top of the tile on either side. So I want to make sure that I'm going in here, oops, and getting this nice and in place. When I come out the top, I still want to come out that last 11-0 bead. So I'm coming out on the side of the 11-0 in the tile. At this point I'm going to mimic the V that we created on the other side, but I'm going to go in to make a loop to connect to the cup button. So here what I want to do is I want to add my 3 11-0s and my 1 15-0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of my 4mm beads. I'm going to pick up the needle on the other side. I'm adding 3 of my 11-0s, 1 of my 15-0s, and I'm going to take that same needle and thread, or that needle and thread, and go through that 4mm bead again, same bead. The needle is going in the same direction, and that's going to create my Y. I'm going to then pick up one of the needles, doesn't matter which one, right or left, and I'm going to add about 28 of my 11-0 seed beads. So there's a little hiccup in the film here, but basically once you have your 28 beads on there, or 24 to 28 beads, you take that thread, you're going back through that 4mm bead, and the one thread is going to go down that 15-0 and the 3-0s on the other side. The other needle reinforces that loop, comes down through the 4mm and comes off the other side. At this point I took the time to not on and add thread. That's why I can't go back and show you that point, because I'm at the point that I can't get it back through. But that thread gets knotted on as you get the project more complete, and you do need to add more thread on. What we're going to do is we're going to cross through that tile. So I'm going to take the needle that's here on the left hand side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross through my first tile. I'm crossing through the very last hole, going through the 11-0 on the side and coming out the 11-0 on the other side. I'm going to take that thread and needle the whole way from the left to the right and give a nice tug. The one that's on the right now is going to go the whole way through those beads and come out on the left side of my project. Once I'm there, I'm going to take my needle and thread down so I'm coming out in between my first tile. So with my right hand thread here, I'm going to go back through the 11-0 picot on the side, down through the 11-0 that's closest to the tile, and I'm going to cross through the tile, coming out right at the base of the tile. So I'm leaving that 11-0 seed bead there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, because again, whatever we mirror on the left, or do on the left, we're going to mirror with the right. So I'm going through those seed bead, that picot trim, and then coming out my tile. You can see here I'm working on my AB side, my shiny side. And I'm going through that tile, and again on this side, coming out between the seed bead and the tile. Once I'm there, coming out between the projects, I'm going to start to get ready to add my 3mm beads in. I'm going to go down the base row first, meaning the row that's in the middle, and then I'll hit the ones that are on the side. And again, this project is unique that at any point in time you can stop this project and be complete with your bracelet. So again, if I wanted to at this point, I could stop. I'm going to decorate the middle using my 15-0 beads as well as my 3mm beads. I'm going to put on a 15-0, a 3mm, and a 15-0. My needle that's coming out right here on the right side of my last tile, I'm going to put in on the left side, coming down in the same fashion, going through that tile. So I'm crossing through that first hole of my tila and going straight through to the other side, which includes going through that 11-0. And that's going to put the bead at a crisscross between my tile. Next I'm going to take a 15-0 on my needle on the left here, go through my bead that's on already over to the other side. When I come out the other side, on goes another 15-0, and then I'm going to cross through the tila on the other side. Oops. Now it's your choice whether or not with each one of these you want to snake the thread next to the tila, that you can put it down and just come out the tila, or you can choose to go through the trim and go through that picot. That's up to you. It is going to be a time saver if you just go straight through the tile to the other side. Oops, this one just really wants to go through that 11-0, but you don't want to do that. If you do have the point where it goes through the 11-0 and you can't get it out the tile on the other side, flip it to the other side, and this would be my black side here, and chances are you can get that bead pushed out of the way. So again, we're kind of looking at the reversible side. Flipping it back over, I'm going to take my needle the whole way through here, and I'm going to show you how it just comes down then that side of my tile, and you hardly see it at all. So there it comes down the side of the tile, not going into the beads, and you really, like I said, don't see it. Once you're through that bottom section of your tile, we're going to add our next collection of our 15-0s and our 3mm beads. The needle that's on the other side, I'm going to take out of the 11-0 because I am going to do the little cheat. I'm just going to go down the side of my tila. I'll keep saying tila, sorry, tile. Down the tile to the other side and out, just making sure that it doesn't grab on any of those beads. When I get out the bottom again, I'm going to do the crisscross, adding a 15-0, 3mm 15-0, going to the opposite side of the next tile in a crisscross fashion, through to the other side, taking the opposite side needle, making sure, because I did have it flipped, that I'm coming out here and I'm not twisted around my thread at all. So I just twisted a little bit, so I'm untwisting there. Put my 15-0 on, cross through the same 3mm, 15-0 on the other side, and then taking it through the tile, going the opposite direction. I know there's a lot of thread in here. This project uses a ton of thread, so I apologize. I don't want to have to add a bunch later on. But as I pull it all through, then that bead is going to lay right down next to the other one. Give a nice tight pull after each one, and you're going to get those beads to lay in place in that crisscross pattern. So I'm at the point where I'm going to do my last little crisscross here, adding my 3mm. I have a 15-0 on each needle, and I'm taking my needle from right to left and left to right, pulling nice and tight. This is just showing a different way that you're doing this, accomplishing the same thing. And I'm going to put my 11-0 on. If you've looked at our Hugs and Kisses bracelet, This is the same thing, or diagonal stitch. Same thing right on top of the beads in that. And this again is just going right through the tile on the other side after I add a 15-0 after. When I go through the tile here, I'm going to go through the tile and the 11-0, and I'm going to come out the 11-0 on the complete opposite side of the project. Pull that thread nice and tight. I'm going to do the same thing with my other needle. Because again, it's kind of like a broken record, but anything that you do on the right, you're also going to do on the left. So I'm going through this side, going through the tile, straight through to the other side. And straight through my 11-0, through my tile, and through my 11-0 on the other side. When you get to the other side here, you can decide really, again, what you want your project to look like. Do you want your project to be without the middle X's? Do you want the middle X's? You can put X's on the outer rows here and X through. That's kind of up to you. What I'm going to do is just decorate the sides of mine. If you did want to do the X's between here as well and make it a little bit bolder looking, you would do the same thing, going zigzagging back and forth. You can do it with one thread, and then once you're down at the bottom, come back up to the top with the other thread. We're going to keep it, like I said, nice and simple. I'm going into my drop and into my seed bead, so into that little drop trim at the end. And I'm going to do one side right now, and then I'll come down and do the other side. On this, what I'm going to do is every other bead is going to be a 3mm and a 4mm. So my 4mm bead goes on. I go through my 11-0 and my drop and my 11-0 on the exterior trim. And after I add my 4mm, I add a 3. I go through my 11-0, my drop, and my 11-0. If you want to, you can also just use 3mm and add 15 O's on the side. That'll also get you the correct spacing. But you can see this part goes quickly, which is nice because the last part took a little bit of time. But it would look neat if you would crisscross on this exterior row as well, give you a different look. And you're just going to continue right down the line, going through the seed beads and the teardrops, adding both the 3mm and the 3mm and the 4mm bead. Got my thread caught there. Put that over to the side. You can see the easiest method usually is to pick up the 11 and the drop and then come back and get the final 11. And I'm going to continue going down my line, adding my 4s and my 3mm with my right side and with my left side. So I've gone down the whole right side here, adding my opposites, my 4s and my 3s. I have my last 4 on, and what I'm going to do now is show you how to jump and reinforce the clasp. So I'm going to go through that last 11 and drop an 11, just like we've been doing. As I go through the last 11, I'm going to also go through my last tile. When I go through my last tile, I have a seed bead here on the side from that little picot trim on that first tile. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that little picot on the side, that little 11-0. Try not to get tangled here. And I'm going to fill in this gap here where I also have a knot from adding thread, so just kind of ignore that. And I'm going to add 2 seed beads. The 2 seed beads go on, and then I'm going to go up these side beads here. And I'm also going to go up through my 15-0. When I come out, I'm going to go through my 4mm, that's part of my loop of my clasp. And again, this just kind of repeats the other side. I'm going to go through my whole loop here, reinforcing. And as I go through the whole loop here, at the very end, all I'm going to do is come down the other side. add my 2 beads, and go through my tile. So just like I did with this first side, we're going to do the same thing on this other side. Okay. Like I said, anything that gets done on the right also gets done on the left. I feel like a broken record, but at any point you can stop in this bracelet and just kind of leave it be. Once I come down, there's 3 on the side here. I'm going to add on 2 of my other 11 O's, and then we're going to hop down and go through the next tile. Those 11 O's go on, I go down the side, and then as I come through here, that side bead, I'm also going to go through the tile, go through my 11 O on the side, go through my drop in my 11 O, and then we're going to get ready to go up the left side. I'm going to continue up the left side going the opposite, where I'm going to add the 4 and then the 3, 4, then 3, and what it's going to do is it's going to mimic the right side. So I'm just going to continue up the whole left side here, doing my opposites and running down the 11 and the drops. As I come to the end here, I've added the whole last side on what was my left, but I'm just holding it on the right. I'm going to get ready to tie off because I've added on there. And I go in here, pick up that side bead, add those 2 beads, and reinforce that whole clasp. And I'm going to reinforce this one more time here, going up through. At the same time you go through your cup button, you always want to try to grab onto whatever you have on the side, in this case the 15 O's on the top of the cup button. It's really hard to get back through there once you come out of it. I've reinforced going back through that whole row there. And basically I'm just mimicking the other side and reinforcing it a couple more times. All I'm going to do then is get ready to tie off my thread. I'm going to flip over to the black side here in order to tie off my thread because it'll be less noticeable. Although there's a lot going on with this bracelet, so you really won't see much at all. I'm just going to do a half hitch knot where I have that loop that I make, and I come back through the loop and create a little knot on the side here. I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times in my bracelet, and then just take my burner and burn down a little bit. You can use a little glue if you want. I'm going to go back to any times that I added thread and burn down on those as well. The bracelet turns out really, really nice. Again, it gets that interchangeable kind of great to travel bracelet that if you're going on vacation or you're going on a trip and you only want to take 1 or 2, just a couple bracelets with you. This is a wonderful one because it really does go almost from daytime look to nighttime look with those fun sides. Again, at any point in this bracelet, you can choose to stop, not add the middle, not add the sides. That's kind of up to you. If you are using a cup button, it makes a nice clasp. It gets easy to put on and off, and it just has a nice fun lay with these tile beads. You can also do this with the Tila beads. They're just a little tiny bit different in size, so you want to make sure to kind of try out a little section and a little piece first before you get in and do your whole bracelet. So have fun playing with these new tiles that we're getting out of the Czech Republic. Have fun with all these new Czech finishes on the seed beads, as well as the 3 and 4 Czech millimeter metallic glass that we've gotten in. It's a really great addition to your stock if you're looking for beads that will match with everything. And again, if you get a chance, you can check out the rest of our YouTube videos. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter. You can visit our website, PotomacBeads.com, and check out our locations page. We'd love to see you in one of our physical locations where you can actually take a class or get the materials you need. If you can't get to one of our locations, shop online with us, and we'd be happy to ship out any of the products that you see here for you to make your very own reversible tile bracelet. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always, have fun beading and have a great time learning new techniques.